on these stairs, perhaps even upstairs, in a bedroom.
Who was whistling Three Blind Mice? Are you making this up, Mr. Paravicini?
No, Inspector. I beg your pardon. Sergeant, I would not do a thing like that.
Well, go on. You were playing the piano.
With one finger. So! And then I hear the radio playing very loud. Someone is shouting on it. It offended my ears. And after that, suddenly, I hear Mrs. Ralston scream.
Mr. Ralston upstairs, Mr. Wren upstairs, Mr. Paravicini in the drawing room. Miss Casewell.
I was writing letters in the library.
Did you hear what was going on in here?
No, I didn't hear anything until Mrs. Ralston screamed.
And what did you do then?
I came in here.
At once?
I think so.
You say you were writing letters when you heard Mrs. Ralston scream.
Yes.
And you got up hurriedly and came in here.
Yes.
And yet there doesn't seem to be any unfinished letters on the writing desk in the library.
I brought it with me.
Dearest Jessie, a friend or relation?
That's none of your damned business.
Perhaps not. You know, Miss Casewell, if I were to hear someone scream blue murder, I don't believe I'd take the time to pick up my unfinished letter, fold it, and put it in my pocket before going to see what was the matter.
You wouldn't? How interesting.
Now, Major Metcalf, you say you were in the cellars. Why?
Looking around. Just looking around. I looked into the cupboard placed under the stairs near the kitchen. A lot of junk and sports tackle. I noticed there's another door inside. I opened it and I saw 5 steps. I was curious, so I went down. Nice cellars we've got.
Glad you liked them.
Not at all. Could be the old monastery, I should say. Perhaps why this place is called Mousetrap.
We're not engaged in antiquarian research, Major Metcalf. Mrs. Ralston states that she heard a door shut with a faint creak. That particular door shuts with a creak. Could be, you know, that after killing Mrs. Boyle, the murderer may have heard Mrs. Ralston coming from the kitchen and slipped into the cupboard, pulling the door after him.
A lot of things could be.
There would be fingerprints on the inside of the cupboard.
Man, are they alright? But most criminals are careful to wear gloves, aren't they?
It's usual, yes, but all criminals slip up sooner or later.
Really, Sergeant? Do you think that's true? Look here, aren't we wasting time? There's only one person
Mr.
here.
Ralston, I'm in charge of this investigation.
Very well, but I just thought you'd want to
Mr.
know.
Ralston! Thank you. We've got to establish opportunity, you know, as well as motive. And let me tell you this. You all had opportunity.
Please, really, please.
There are 2 staircases. Anyone could come down by one and go up by the other. Anyone could go down to the cellars by the door near the kitchen and come up by a flight of steps that leads through the trap door to the foot of the stairs in there. The vital fact was that every one of you was alone at the time Mrs. Boyle was killed.
But look here, Sergeant. You speak as though we were all under suspicion. That's absurd.
In a murder case, everyone is under suspicion.
But you know very well who killed that woman in Culver Street. You think it was the eldest of those 3 children at the farm. A mentally abnormal young man who is now 23 years of age. Well, there's only one person here who could fit the bill.
It's not true. It's not true. You're all against me.
Everyone's always been against me. You're going to frame me for murder. Persecution. That's what it is, persecution!
Maybe that's steady.
It's all right, Chris. Nobody's against you. Tell him it's all right.
We don't frame people.
Tell him you're not going to arrest him.
I'm not arresting anyone. To do that, I have to have evidence. I haven't gotten any evidence. Yet.
I think you're crazy, Mollie. And you too. There's only one person here who fits the bill. And if only as a safety measure, he must be put under arrest. It's only fair to the rest of us.
Giles, wait. Sergeant Trotter, can I speak with you?
Of course, Mrs. Ralston. Will the rest of you go into the dining room, please?
I'm staying.
No, you too, Giles.
I'm staying. I don't know what's come over you, Mollie.
Please.
Yes, Mrs. Ralston, what is it you wanted to say to me?
Sergeant Trotter, you think that this crazy killer must be the eldest of the 3 children on the farm. But you don't know that, do you?
We don't actually know a thing. All we know is that the woman who assisted her husband in ill-treating and starving those children has been killed. The woman magistrate who was responsible for placing them there has also been killed. The telephone wire that links me to police headquarters has been cut.
But you don't even know that. It may have been just the snow.
No, Mrs. Ralston. It was deliberately cut. It was cut right outside your front door. I found the place.
See.
Sit down, Mrs. Ralston.
But all the same, you don't know.
I'm going by probability. It all points one way. Childish mentality, mental instability, desertion from the army in the psychiatrist's report.
I know, and therefore it all seems to point to Christopher. But I don't believe it is Christopher. There must be other possibilities.
Such as?
Hadn't those children any relations at all?
The mother was a drunk. She died soon after the children were taken from her.
What about the father?
The father was an army sergeant. If he's still alive, he's probably discharged from the army by now.
You don't know where he is now?
We've no information, but I can assure you, Mrs. Ralston, the police are taking every eventuality into account.
But you don't know where he may be at this minute. And if the son was mentally unstable, the father may be unstable too.
It's a possibility.
If he came home, after being a prisoner of war perhaps, if he came home and found his wife dead and that his children had gone through some terrible experience and that one of them had died through it, he might have gone off his head a bit and want revenge.
That's only surmise.
But it's possible.
Oh yes, Mrs. Ralston, it's quite possible.
When I said that the police had run up, Major Metcalf was frightfully upset. He really did.
Major Metcalf?
I know it seems quite nice and perfectly normal, but it mightn't show, might it?
No, often it doesn't show at all.
So it's not only Christopher who's a suspect, there's Major Metcalf as well.
Any other suggestions?
Mr. Paravicini did drop the poker when I said the police had run up.
Mr. Paravicini?
I know he seems quite old and foreign and everything, but he might really be as old as he looks. He moves like a much younger man and he's definitely got makeup on his face. Miss Casewell noticed it too. I know it seems very melodramatic, but he might be disguised.
You're very anxious, aren't you? But it shouldn't be, young Mr. Wren?
He just seems so helpless somehow. So unhappy.
Mrs. Ralston, I can assure you the police have all possibilities in mind ever since the beginning. The boy, Georgie, the father, and someone else. It was a sister, you know.
The sister?
Could have been a woman who killed Marine Lion. A woman. Muffler pulled up, felt hat pulled well down. The killer spoke in a whisper. It's the voice that gives the sex away. Yes, Mrs. Ralston, it could have been a woman.
Miss Casewell?
She seems a bit old for the part, but... Oh yes, Mrs. Ralston, there's a very wide field. There's yourself, for instance.
Me?
You're about the right age?
No, I've never.
No. No. I have no means of checking your statement, remember. Then there's your husband.
Giles? Don't be ridiculous.
Him and Christopher Wren are much of an age. Say, your husband looks older than his years, and Christopher Wren looks younger. Actual age is very hard to tell. How long had you known your husband? How much do you know about your husband, Mrs. Ralston?
How much do I know about Giles? Don't be ridiculous.
You've been married how long?
A year.
And you met him where?
At a dance in London, we went to a party.
Did you meet his people?
He hasn't got any people, they're all dead.
They're all dead.
Oh yes, but you make it sound all wrong. His father was a barrister and his mother died when he was a baby.
You're only telling me what he told you.
Yes, but...
You don't know any of it of your own knowledge?
It's outrageous that you should think that
You'd be surprised, Mrs. Ralston, if you knew how many cases rather like yours we get. Homes broken up and families killed. Fellow says he's just been in the Air Force or just finished his army training. Parents killed, no relations. There aren't any backgrounds nowadays, and young people settle their own affairs. It's the parents who used to make the inquiries before consenting to an engagement, but that's all done away with. Girl just marries a man. Often it takes a year or two before she finds out that he's an absconding bank clerk or an army deserter. Something equally undesirable. How long had you known Giles Ralston before you married him?
Just 3 weeks.
And you know nothing about him.
That's not true. I know everything about him. I know exactly the sort of person he is. He's Giles. And it's absolutely absurd for you to suggest that he's some crazy, horrible, homicidal maniac. Why, Giles wasn't even in London yesterday when the murder took place.
Where was he? Here?
No, he went across country to get some wine out and 4 chickens.
Bring it back with him?
No, it turned out to be the wrong kind.
Only 30 miles from London, are you? You got an ABC? An hour by train? A little longer by car?
I tell you, Giles wasn't in London.
Just a minute, Mrs. Ralston. Is this your husband's coat?
Yes.
Evening news. Yesterday's. Sold in the streets of London about 3:30 yesterday afternoon.
I don't believe it.
Don't you? Don't you? Huh.
Mollie,
Startled me.
where is he? Where did he go?
Who?
The sergeant.
He went out that way.
If only I could get away. Somehow, some way. Is there anywhere I can hide in this house?
Hide?
Yes, from him.
But why?
Darling, they're all so frightfully against me. They're going to say I committed these murders. Particularly your husband.
Remind him. Listen, Christopher. You can't go on running away from things all your life.
How do you say that?
It's quite true, isn't it?
Yes, it's quite true.
You've got to grow up sometime, Chris.
I wish I hadn't.
Your name isn't really Christopher Wren, is it?
No.
And you're not really training to be an architect?
No.
Then why did you...
Call myself Christopher Wren. It just amused me. And then they used to laugh at me in school and call me Little Christopher Robin. Robin Wren, Association of Ideas. It was hell being at school.
What's your real name?
You needn't go into that. I ran away whilst I was still doing my army service. It was all so beastly, I hated it. Yes, I'm just like the unknown murderer. I told you I was the one the specification fitted. You see, my mother.
Yes, your mother?
Everything would have been alright if she hadn't died. She would have taken care of me, looked after me.
You can't go on being looked after your whole life, Chris. Things happen to you. You've just got to bear them. You've got to go on, just as usual.
One can't do that.
Yes, one can.
You mean, you have?
Yes.
What was it? Something very bad?
Something I've never forgotten.
Was it the two of Giles?
No, it was long before I met Giles.
You must have been very young. Almost a child.
Perhaps that's why it was so awful. It was horrible. Horrible. I try to put it out of my head. I try never to think about it.
So you're running away too. Running away from things instead of facing them.
Perhaps, in a way, I am. Considering I never saw you until yesterday, we seem to know each other rather well.
Yes, it's odd, isn't it?
I don't know, I suppose there's a sort of sympathy between us.
Anyway, you think I ought to stick it out?
Frankly, what else can you do?
I might pitch the sergeant's skis. I can ski quite well.
It would be frightfully stupid. It would almost be like admitting you're guilty.
Sergeant Trotter thinks I'm guilty.
No, he doesn't. At least, I don't know what he thinks. I hate him. I hate him, I hate him, I hate him.
Who?
Sergeant Trotter. He puts things into your head, things that aren't true, that can't possibly be true.
What's all this?
I don't believe it. I won't believe it.
What won't you believe? Come on now, out.
Do you see that?
Yes.
What is it? Yesterday's evening paper. A London paper. And it was in Giles's pocket. Giles didn't go to London yesterday.
Well, if he was here all day...
But he wasn't. He went out in the car to look for some wire netting for our chickens, but he couldn't find any.
That's all right. Perhaps he did go up to London after all.
Why shouldn't he tell me he did? Why pretend he'd been driving all around the countryside?
Perhaps with the news of this murder...
He didn't know about the murder. But did he?
Good Lord, Mollie. Surely you don't think... The sergeant doesn't think.
I don't know what the sergeant thinks. He can make you think things about people. You ask yourself questions and then you begin to doubt. You think that someone you know and love might well be a stranger. That's what happens in a nightmare. You're somewhere in the middle of friends and suddenly you look at their faces and they're not your friends any longer. They're different people, just pretending. Perhaps you can't trust anyone. Perhaps everyone's a stranger.
You seem to be interrupting something.
No, we were just talking. I have to go back to the kitchen. There's spinach and potatoes.
I'll come and give you a hand.
No, you won't.
Giles.
That aren't very healthy things at present. You keep out of the kitchen and keep away from my wife.
Really, look.
You keep away from my wife, Red. She's not going to be the next victim.
So that's what you think of me?
I've already said so, haven't I? There's a killer loose in this house, and it seems to me you fit the bill.
I'm not the only one who fits the bill.
I don't see who else does.
Blind you are. But you only pretend to be blind.
I tell you, I'm worrying about my wife's safety.
So am I. I'm not going to leave you alone with her.
What are you talking about?
Christopher, please go.
I'm not going.
Please go, Chris. I mean it. Please.
I shan't be far away.
What is all this? Mollie, you must be crazy. Perfectly prepared to shut yourself up in the kitchen with a homicidal maniac.
He isn't.
You've only got to look at him to see he's balmy.
He isn't. He's just unhappy. I tell you, Giles. He isn't dangerous. I'd know if he were dangerous. And anyway, I can look after myself.
That's what Mrs. Boyle said.
Giles, don't.
Look here. What is there between you and that wretched boy?
What do you mean by between us? I'm sorry for him, that's all.
Perhaps you'd met him before. Perhaps you'd suggested for him to come here, and that you'd both pretend to meet for the first time. All cooked up between you, was it?
Have you gone out of your mind? Giles, how dare you suggest these things?
Rather odd, is it? That you should come and stay in an out-of-the-way place like this.
No odder than that Miss Casewell or Major Metcalf or Miss Boyle should.
I read once in a paper that these homicidal cases were able to attract women. Looks as though it were true. Where did you first know him? How long has this been going on?
You're being absolutely ridiculous. I never set eyes on Christopher Wren until he arrived here yesterday.
That's what you say. Perhaps you've been running up to London to meet him on the sly.
You know perfectly well I haven't been up to London for weeks.
You haven't been up to London for weeks. Is that so?
What on earth do you mean? It's quite true.
Is it? Then what's this? This is one of the gloves you were wearing yesterday. You dropped it. I picked it up this afternoon when I was talking to Sergeant Trotter. You see what's inside it? A London bus ticket.
That was just...
So it seems you did not only go to the village yesterday, you went to London as well.
Right, I went to
Whilst I was safely away racing around the countryside.
Whilst you were racing around the country.
Come on now, admit it. You went to London.
All right, I went to London. So did you.
What?
So did you. You brought back an evening paper.
Where did you get hold of that?
It was in your overcoat pocket.
Anyone could have put it there.
Did they? No. You went to London.
All right, yes, I went to London. But I didn't go to meet a woman there.
Didn't you? You sure you didn't?
What do you mean?
Go away. Don't come near me.
What's the matter?
Don't touch me.
Did you go to London yesterday to meet Christopher Wren?
Don't be a fool. Of course I didn't.
Then why did you go?
I shan't tell you that. Perhaps now I've forgotten why I went.
Mollie, what's come over you? You're different all of a sudden. I feel as though I don't know you anymore.
Perhaps you never did know me. We've been married, what, a year? And yet you don't really know anything about me. What I've done, or thought, or felt, or suffered before you knew me.
Mollie, you're crazy.
Alright then, I'm crazy. Well, why not? Perhaps it's fun to be crazy.
What are you talking about?
Now, I do hope you young people are not saying a little more than you mean. One is so apt to win these lovers' quarrels.
Lovers quarrel. That's good.
Quite so, quite so. I know just how you feel. I've gone through all the same things as a younger man. Oh, jeunesse, jeunesse, as the poet says. Not been very long, I suppose.
That's no business of yours, as a part of it.
No business at all. But I just came in to say that the sergeant cannot find his keys, and he is very annoyed.
What's that?
He just wants to know if you would by any chance move them, Mr. Ralston.
No, of course not.
Mr. Ralston, Mrs. Ralston, have either of you two removed a pair of skis from the cupboard near the kitchen door?
Certainly not.
Somebody's taken them.
I do wonder what made you look for them.
Snow's still on. I need help here. Reinforcements. I was going to ski over to the police station near Market Hampton to report on the situation.
And now you can't. Dear, somebody's seen to it that you certainly shan't do that. But there could be another reason, couldn't there?
Yes, what?
Somebody may want to get away.
What did you mean when you said Christopher just now?
So a young
Nothing.
architect has he? Very interesting.
Is this true, Mrs. Ralston?
Thank goodness you haven't gone after all.
Mr. Wren, have you removed my skis from the cupboard near the kitchen door?
Your skis, Sergeant. No, why should I?
No, Mrs. Ralston
And
seemed to think
Mr. Wren is very fond of skiing. I thought he might have taken them to get a bit of exercise.
Exercise?
Now listen, you people. Someone has removed my only chance of communication with the outside world. I want everyone in here at once.
I think Miss Casewell has gone upstairs.
I'll get it.
And I left Major Metcalf in the dining room. Major Metcalf! He's not there now.
I'll try and find him.
Hello? Watching me?
Yes, it's a question of my skis.
Okay.
Mr. Ralston!
Have either of you two removed a pair of skis from the cupboard near the kitchen door?
Good lord, no. Why should I?
No, I didn't touch them.
Nevertheless, they are gone. Which way did you go to get to your room?
By the back stairs.